Welcome to the Real Estate Majlis podcast, where we bring you the latest insights and trends in the ever-changing world of real estate. Whether you're a seasoned investor, a first-time buyer, or simply interested in the world of property, our podcast is designed to provide you with valuable information and expert advice.
From discussing the latest market trends and investment strategies to exploring innovative technologies and design trends, myself, Dr. Mahmoud and my co-host, Cecilia Rinaldo, will share our knowledge and expertise to help you make an informed decision in the real estate industry. So please sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the fascinating world of real estate on our podcast. This episode is powered by ThinkProp, the leading Abu Dhabi-based real estate training institute. Whether you're starting your career in real estate or looking to take it to the next level, ThinkProp offers a diverse range of courses certified by the Department of Municipalities and Transport, DMT of Abu Dhabi, with both in-person and online classes available at affordable prices. ThinkProp provides flexibility to fit your schedule. This institute is dedicated to developing a stronger real estate industry through knowledge and expertise. Visit ThinkProp website at thinkprop.ae to learn more.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us one of the success stories of Dubai real estate market. So let me introduce to you Lewis Allsopp, who is the chairman of Allsopp Allsopp, and as I said, one of the figures of Dubai real estate market. So welcome to the show. I'm glad to be with Cecilia today. I have so many questions for you.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's a pleasure to be obviously with Mahmoud and Cecilia. So I'm buzzing to get absolutely drilled by you guys on the questions about real estate.
Ready?
I think so. I think we can be.
So Lewis, the first question.
Yes.
Where we are now in this cycle, how do you see the real estate market currently?
Right. There's a couple of factors when we talk about the Dubai real estate cycle. There is the uneducated opinion and there's the expert opinion. I sit on, hopefully, the expert opinion. People look at Dubai as a cycle and they see 2008, then they see 2014, and then they see 2023. But before you talk about the cycle, I think you have to look at 2014. Why did 2014 actually go down in value? Nothing to do with market economics, nothing to do with the economy. It was actually because the government put a double transfer fee from 2% to 4%. And then also the finances went from 15% to 25%.
Yep.
Why did that happen? That happened because they wanted to cool the market. So that wasn't actually a cycle.
Yep.
That was saying, hang on a minute, we're worried about affordability and people buying. Where are we today? We've currently just surpassed the highest price per square foot average in Dubai as of last week, I think it was, according to Property Monitor and Data Hub by Allsopp Allsopp, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
But where we are today, yes, it's the highest it's ever been, but it's not the same city. I think this is such a massive factor to look at. So I moved here in 2006 and there was the stumps in the ground of the Burj Khalifa and we were selling floor plans of what the unit's going to look like. And Marina had 15 or 20
JLT.
towers. JLT was the extension to the Marina.
Yeah.
Maidan didn't exist. I remember talking about these projects. Where we stand today is all these projects have been built, but the facilities that Dubai has to offer, the F&B, the hotels, the restaurants, the lifestyle. People are not coming here to be a millionaire anymore. They're actually placing their homes here. So it's a very different Dubai. And then you put corporation tax on top, which has just come in, VAT. All this money's come back into the government and that's going to be pumped back into the city. So we've got a long way to go, a long way of growth. It'll be slower growth than we've seen in the last few years, but I think if I'm not forecasting 3 to 5% a year for the next 5 years, I'll be very disappointed with Dubai.
That's actually a very strong statement because, you know, we're starting to hear different points of view that, well, we hit the ceiling.
Perhaps next year we'll see a little slowdown, but you are 100% optimistic that 2024 is still going to be a positive year. People should not be shy into investing right now.
I think people are forced into buying. I think this is the issue to generally consider. I think if you're renting at the moment, what do? You rent, as soon as you vacate that property, you are paying double rent.
Yep.
So the options that people are going into is, okay, if I have the deposit, do I buy? Now, how you look at the Dubai health and the real estate market, I don't look at the highline numbers, people talking about macroeconomics, the oil prices. There's so many stories you can read. Honestly, they can muddle your point of view up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When I look at real estate, there's one specific thing I look at for Dubai. How many people are moving to the city? This year will be over 100,000. And how many houses handed over? 50,000 at best. They're launching all these houses. When are they actually going to hand over? 5 years, 4 years, 3 years? So for the next 4 or 5 years, there's going to be a surplus of people for property. So no matter how we spin it, there is pressure on the pricing. I think that's going to continue at a smaller rate.
But then there's the affordability, right, as well. I think this is also an aspect that people might want to enter the market, but there's a lot of people with that population growth that do not secure salaries that allow them to buy off plan or even get finance. So what happened with them?
I think there's got to be a reality check for people. That's the honest truth, is that I've lived in London. I've lived in the Coventry, which is not a great place. And I've lived in other places around the world. My first place I ever lived in Dubai was the New Gold Souk, which is the Golden Wave in Karama.
Yeah.
Cost me 2,500 dirhams a month, and that was what I could afford.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about affordability in Dubai, okay, you can't afford now to live in Marina or the Springs, but you can afford to live in Dubai South or Expo or further out. JVC. So you can keep going further out. So when we talk about affordability, I think I've seen Danube doing it 1% per month or whatever it is. People can afford to buy it. They just don't. They what they want to afford to buy, they can't afford to buy.
That's a very, very valid point.
Lifestyle, I think they have to choose what suits them.
Correct.
Just to follow on what Cecilia asked you. So are we talking today about the seller market or a buyer market?
50-50. I think maybe in the last 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, we've started to see a bit more power to the buyer, which is the first time I've seen that in years. And the reason for that is people still want to buy, but what we've seen in Dubai is people would list a house in the Springs for 3 million and it's selling at 3.5 million. These are no longer selling, what we call speculative sellers that put it on hoping they're going to get that price.
Yeah.
So now buyers are actually pulling their brakes on saying, I'll pay what it's worth. So people are still buying.
That's good. Yeah.
And sellers are, having to reduce their prices a little bit to be able to do the transactions, right?
Big statement, though, to make. They're reducing their marketing price. So when we talk about the real estate market, people are going, there's a price reduction. Yes, there's a price reduction because your house is not worth 9 million.
Absolutely.
If you go onto Data Hub, which is our platform where you can see sold data with DLD transactions, why is someone going to buy a house that's trading at 3 million for 4 million? And I think that's the big thing. When we talk about price reductions, that's not a bad thing. It's just houses now are coming down to what they're actually worth. The marketing price and the sales price will always differ, always.
So what are the opportunities that you think buyers are having right now?
Well, what are the best opportunities?
Yep.
I think the best buyer, the best investor in Dubai at the moment is someone that just lives in a home. That's my number one tip I'd give anybody. So people talk about rent and they'll say, my rent's really cheap, it's this, it's that. Rent is dead money. Your rent is 5,000 dirhams a month, you lose 5,000 dirhams a month. But if your mortgage is 5,000 dirhams a month, 2.5 goes to interest, 2.5 goes to capital repayment. So if you are an end user and you fast forward 10 years, you've got 2,500 dirhams of savings every month going in and you will cash out. The tenant has nothing. So for me, there's many opportunities, but the best tip I give anybody, if you're a tenant, get on the ladder at any physical way possible and build on that afterwards.
So buy your home. Your home should be your first real estate investment, and then you move into investments after.
I've got friends that, believe it or not, and it's crazy, they buy buy-to-lets first. So they'll live in rented, and they'll go, what I've done, Lewis, I've bought this place in England because I want to put money in England. I go, okay, so what are you making? I'm making £500 a month, let's call it 3,000 dirhams, and that's paying my mortgage. Okay, but you're making money here and you're giving it to someone else at the end of your whole cycle of making money. There is a hole at the bottom. That hole is your landlord.
Yes.
If you plug that, it goes back to you. That's how wealth works. Wealth works on receiving money and circling it back to yourself. And if you can be a homeowner, that's what you do.
But I'll go back to the point you mentioned earlier about the market still positive next year in 2024. But the luxury market, we've seen unprecedented prices, not just 5 or 10%. The prices being something that one could say is a little bit strong. Don't you think that sector requires a correction?
Nope, absolutely not.
Okay,
So
explain why.
I've bought in the one and only Wantabile, so the one with the cantilever in the middle. I've bought in the Atlantis Royale, and I've bought in the W. I've bought in multiple projects.
But not now, earlier.
2020. Okay. So I bought that at 5,000 dirhams a square foot for the Wantabile and 4,000 for Atlantis. Now, when I bought that, people were like, oh my God, Lewis, it's too much price per square foot. Now, what you find, the people that are saying the higher end market is overpriced is because they're so focused on Dubai, it's wild. So I have a place in central London, and it's a place called Earl's Court. Now, Earl's Court is a little bit dangerous, to be honest with you. It's not like Knightsbridge. It's like just on the outskirts. It's zone one, it's central, but it's definitely not what I would call like A1. That house is worth 10 million dirhams, but it's 1,000 square feet. That means 10,000 dirhams a square foot for a basic, okay location in London. You then go to New York, you're paying the same. You go and get something in France, in Paris, you're paying more. So when you look at these other places around the world, Dubai is undervalued. So the Burj Khalifa today, you can buy a 2-bedroom for 6.5 million, full fountain view. Or you can buy my place in London that has a view of I don't even know, a corner shop of it. Like, you can't class it. It is so undervalued at the moment. But the reason people do say it's overvalued is because they're used to the 2008-9 prices. And that makes people uncomfortable.
And that it is, people are uncomfortable. Yeah. That's true.
Lewis, the question goes to the investors now. From your interaction with investors. What do you see in the market in terms of things they're doing correct, things that they need to think about before they jump into a certain opportunities? And what do you see? Like if there's any remarks or any trends you see?
I think getting the developers right is massive. I think there's loads of sub-projects out there. I use JVC as the example. So we've had investors buying JVC and the building looks nice, but when you get into the building and you step outside, there's like a sand pit around you and there's nothing there. And it's just like, oh my God, what? The building's nice, but there's nothing there. A lot of people that are buying now are not just buying the property. They're buying the amenities that come with it and the location. So if you lose Ema, you use Nikhil, you use Miras. Let's use Miras as a perfect example. City, when you go into Blue Waters, you walk in, there's a high street of restaurants and there's a good feel there and there's a vibe because the master community is all thought out. People that are launching these buildings, they're launching one building which is beautiful, but there's not a lot there. So taking a view of the community is a big thing. I think there's a saying in real estate, isn't there? If you can't afford buy on the most expensive street that you can, even if it's the worst property, because that's what people need to follow, that angle, not just buying the best, having a 5,000 square foot property in the middle of the desert. So definitely the developers, definitely mass communities. And yeah, they're probably two main things I would say. What about you? What would you look for?
I mean, I want to have a follow-up question.
Go on.
I'll tell you what. I mean, very, very similar to what you're saying. What is your take on luxury branded residence from investor point of view? There's so many of them. Some unknown developers are doing it to get the brand equity. So where do you see that?
So the brand equity for developers is incredible. Obviously, you'd pay a certain markup to use their name, but when you sell that branded residences, the value of it is insane. So the perfect example is Vida in Dubai Marina. So Vida in Dubai Marina is a development I was looking at investing in. I really liked the project, the location. It didn't end up happening, but I was doing a market analysis of that unit. So a 3-bedroom is 350,000 to rent in Vida Marina. So you have the restaurants, the cafe, everything's built into it. Same 3-bedroom in Dubai Marina is 180,000. That's non-branded. But people are paying it. You know, there's two types of people. There are the people that want savings and there's people that want lifestyle. So do I think branded residence, is there a market? Yes. I mean, you go to London at the moment, there's a huge project taking place called the Whiteley in Six Senses, which is they're renovating this massive building and they're spending billions on it, and they're getting like £8 million for a 3-bedroom in not a great location, Bayswater it's called, which is just okay. But people are buying into the Six Senses. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. You know, if I look at my mindset, why I've bought, I just did a handover of the One Zabeel. So the One Zabeel is an apartment. It's probably the most expensive 1-bedroom that anyone's bought in Dubai. I bought a 1-bedroom for 8.2 million. So it's branded residences, fully furnished, one and only. But when I went to go do the handover, I loved it. The money becomes irrelevant because I went into the cantilever in the middle, and then the cantilever is like a floating DIFC. You've got like 8 or 9 restaurants in there. There's a nightlife. There's a swim-up pool and bar. And I know I'm going to rent that. That apartment, and I'll put it on camera now, I bought it for 8 point whatever it was. That will be the first 1-bedroom they rent for over $1 million dirhams. And that'll be the first one that'll happen. And I believe it because the type of client they were looking at is not looking for budget. They're looking for lifestyle. So I think that if you're an investor, you can definitely pick up a good yield, good strong investment, and exit quickly off the back of it as well.
But they also command typically high service charges, right? So you think the ROI is still better than a non-branded property?
I think it's relative. I mean, let's say, for instance, if the service charges for a 1-bedroom end up being 60,000, you're doubling your rent. You're no longer getting 180, you're getting 360. So they're just different investments. I mean, I've got other investments, by the way, that I own, like 1-bedrooms in Jumeirah Golf Estates. They're just straight up rentals. There's no love in it, but they get me like 11 or 12% yields because I bought them cheap before, rented them higher. So there's so many different investments, but the branded residences, I honestly believe the type of tenant you're going to get, the type of buyer you're going to sell it to, the type of market you're in, there is your affordability, there is your lifestyle, and there's your super luxury. The super luxury will sit in the branded residences for the super luxury brands.
I want to change the conversation a little bit about, we just had COP28 that happened. There's a lot of conversation about sustainability in general, in all levels, not just, you know, from lifestyle, living, and quality of life. How does this now reflect into real estate? Do you think developers take a different view when it comes to sustainability? The buyers now are looking from not just from the amenities, but the aspects of sustainability they want in their home?
If I'm honest with you, I'm not a super expert on sustainability, and even COP28, I know it's a big, I'm sure this is something you've been heavily involved in, but sustainability is naturally going to have a knock-on effect. Developers launching sustainable projects means it's probably going to be more expensive to build. But if you ask the end user and that end of the market, honestly, they don't care about sustainability. That's the honest truth. You know, if you said to someone today, oh, the Burj Khalifa, I can offer this cheap unit, but it's not sustainable, they're just going to go, we don't care, we want the Burj Khalifa. But for developers, for government, for everyone else, 100% sustainability is going to have a big factor. And I think there's going to be lots of worldwide criteria, whether that is lending and ratings for the countries that they're in. I'm sure you could probably dig a bit deeper into that.
Yeah, I think, well, there are different kinds of investors. There is a type of investors actually who are looking at the greenery, space, walkability of the communities. They want to live
savings on energy as well,
saving of energy, that's less utilities, higher return on investment. But maybe as it's not something very common like what Europe has. A lot of Europeans, they want to live a sustainable life. But we started to see post-COVID that this trend of sustainability, and that's why Sustainable City was sold here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
It's a fantastic project. So I mean, I've got friends that live in Sustainable City, and they tell me you can't have your cars in there unless
you cannot drive your cars into your garage.
To a certain degree,
Has anybody done like a research on after that to see how that's affected people's lifestyles, the communities?
Actually, we've done a survey for 2 years, and we found that the happiest community in Dubai were the Sustainable City.
Wow.
So we don't know how is that related to maybe, you know, sustainability is not just about the environment. It's about also the social sustainability, which also part of value enhancement. You know, have community, walkable, playing ground for kids and so on. So I think even Dubai Plan 2040 is about sustainability.
Well, if you look at sustainable cities, going back to there again, I mean, we took our kids there multiple times. They have the farm animals there. They have the ducks. Like, you walk in, And I think, if I'm honest with you, it's the one thing that I really pray Dubai just keeps working on is, and you're seeing it, to be honest, with new projects, the lifestyle of the families being outdoors and sociable and active. Because I think when I was a kid, you know, it never happened anymore because I think I was that last era, but you get your bike and you'd all bike to meet each other, and, you know, you go to the fields and it's just an amazing lifestyle for the kids. And I think Dubai, if you look at like the Springs as a perfect example, up until maybe 8 or 9 years ago, they didn't have paths. They didn't have paths to go into the community. But now they're launching new developments. I think if you look at Dubai Hills, they've got a beach within the a beach park and things like that. There's some cool areas to live. So people do want it. And if you talk about that side of sustainability, it's a massive factor. Massive.
I want to take you also to a different conversation. We had a lot of discussions, me and you, personal level, on some frustration on the relationship between investors and tenants, because that also impacts investors. So the conversation we had once about investors buying a property and they want to live in there, and the previous owners give a notice. So how do you see that now being tackled in Dubai? Is it tackled in a fair way for investors? And in terms of rent increase, fairness for owners, for tenants, how do you see that? Because that's a conversation we had a lot, and it impacts investors.
It's a very political conversation because I've sat on every fence. I've bought in 2008, I've sold in 2008, I've rented in 2006. I've done everything you could imagine. I've seen every feasible interest rate change, rent change. And I look at it now and I think, okay, fine. How does it affect the tenant? The tenant doesn't want to pay more rent. So everybody puts the landlord as, he's out of order, he's increasing my rent. But there is another side to it that people don't want to talk about. The interest rates were at 1.1%. Some people are now paying 7%.
True.
To put that into context for you, someone's mortgage could have doubled. That's basically, if you bought in 2020 and you go 2023 today, if your mortgage was 10,000, it's now 20,000. You can't get 20,000 from the tenant. So the landlord is naturally sinking, bearing in mind they're paying service charges as well. So do I believe it's fair? Yes, because you have to look after the tenant. But I think it's so important to remember there is another party that's also being hurt. And I don't think that's talked about enough at the moment. If I was a tenant, my only job, as I said today, I'll be getting on the property ladder. Tenants will be kicked out. I think naturally they will be. That's the honest truth. I think whether or not they say on paper they're moving into it and they put someone else into it, I know it's completely against the rules. But if these people are sinking in their outgoing debts, they will do whatever they need to do to get their tenant out. And I think, my father-in-law has just been kicked out of his place in Jumeirah Golf Estates, and he's looking for a new house. They've doubled. They've doubled from when he bought it to try and get into his tenancy.
And usually the reasons for eviction that we see nowadays, the three reasons is you want to use it for personal use, the desire to sell it, and maybe major renovation and maintenance. But what we see mainly now, they give you a rental contract and the same day they give you something, eviction notice for selling. So we had one time discussion on if I'm a landlord and I give a notice of 1 year, then after 6 months I sell this property, then nowadays what we have in Dubai is the new owner doesn't have to give another 1 year notice, right?
So this kicked in recently. So we had a court case. Obviously, you imagine we've sold multiple properties. I mean, we sell hundreds and hundreds of properties a month, end user properties. So we've been selling properties to clients saying, look, the owner will let you move out. The tenant has agreed to move out. We've signed the contract. And then when the tenants have seen the new rent, they've went, I'm not moving out. So
change their mind.
Honestly. So I've called Mahmoud and I'm like, Mahmoud, we've got a problem here. Like, we're selling properties to families that, and now they've put a deposit in, they've transferred, the tenant's not moving out. Basically, what the courts were doing is saying, we're linking the sale to the eviction notice to the person, not the property. So when you sold, you had to reset it. There was a judgment with us about 2 months ago where they're now saying, no, we're linking it to the property. So even if you sell the property, it's linked to the next person on. So it keeps the 12 months further in.
But that's then kind of the new rule, right? That's going on. So it doesn't matter. We're going to have to reset. So it's another 12 months.
No, now they made it.
Really?
You continue with the notice. So if 6 months gone,
so
then
you actually got judgment of continuation of the.
Correct.
That's amazing.
That's the new trend now. That's actually what's happening now. So if there is a notice, then this notice will be respected. So if you sell in between, you don't give the new owner will not give a new notice.
Okay.
It will be a continuation of that.
Which is brilliant.
But that is contradicting the changes that we've seen on the law, right?
No, the law doesn't say about that. It says 1 year notice, but the explanation of that, who's giving this 1 year notice? Is it the previous owner or the new owner? So it was
So it's a judgment call. So it could go both ways, actually.
But now it's going one way.
Historical law, isn't there?
Okay.
So this is the thing. When I spoke to Mahmoud, I was like, look, you've got to understand people are buying the house, they can't move into it.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you'd bought a house thinking to move in and then you reset the whole thing, the whole ecosystem becomes broke.
Yeah.
Because the whole basis of Dubai's growth is tenants becoming buyers and then buyers becoming sellers. But if you can't get the tenants on the ladder because they're rented, so that we're actually advising a lot of our clients that have properties vacant to do short-term rentals. Not to make more money. I don't believe short-term rentals, you make loads more money, but you have flexibility, which is gets you into your house.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting one, because if you're saying now, and how long it took for the judgment to come in?
Oh, like 6 months back and forward.
6 months.
Yeah.
So if I want to sell now and I give notice and I sell in 3 months, now there's 9 months left for the tenant. And if the tenant challenges that, then it could take up to 6 months too.
I think it'll be quicker now because we've obviously been through this with the courts. That, I mean, most courts around the world, they have historical law. So they would go in and say, on this date, this happened.
Yeah.
They would go and show that. So I think there's probably been a conversation with land department and the courts to say, this is a problem, we need to fix it. And then I can only imagine.
Because under Emirates is also different, the way they treat the evictions, right? This is just mainly in Dubai.
What happens in Abu Dhabi?
2 months notice.
Oof.
Yes. And 5% increase max if you want to increase.
But 2 months notice?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And there is no reason to evict. So you just say, I want you to leave in 2 months for residential, 3 months for commercial in Abu Dhabi. And if you want to continue, then it's a 5% increase max.
So are you an expert in this, yeah?
A little bit.
Field.
So hypothetically, so we've had this issue. The reason we bought our offices, by the way, that we're in now, is because if you own a 11, 12,000 square foot office, it's 5 million fit out minimum to do it. So in Abu Dhabi, if you bought an office, rented an office from a landlord, you fitted it out, they can still kick you out in 3 months.
Yeah, but I think there's terminology on the contract that can give you longevity.
Longer,
You wouldn't, especially when it comes to commercial real estate, because obviously it doesn't make any commercial sense if you have to leave after 2 months.
Yeah. So actually, these are the traditional questions we get on rental and investment. The first one is related to eviction. The second one is related also to the increase. So traditionally, we were saying that everything is linked to a rental index here in Dubai, and whatever it says, the rent calculator, that's what will happen.
Yes.
But with now valuation that is being now done by landlords, they go and do valuation, which turns to be higher than the index. So now what we see that the court says, the court may go with the valuation, but the maximum increase in all scenarios will be the max of 20%, regardless of how much is the valuation. Yeah. So I think that also gives some stability to the relationship between investors and tenants, and that's crucial for investment here in the UAE.
100%.
I think the main thing that tenants want, I mean, I own a couple of groups in Dubai. So one of them's called Brits in Dubai. So there's like 40,000 Brits that live on there and ask questions. And the main question that comes up is, what are the rules? And I think if I could have one wish list for DLD to the people is to literally make a press release and say, this is the rules. Now, I know they're always going to vary because it goes down to the courts at the end at some point. A lot of people don't understand that unless they're watching this podcast. They can I do 20%? Is it more than 20%? Is it the rental index?
Yeah, that's why we're doing this podcast.
There you go.
Awareness, education, and to the point.
100%.
We put ourselves in the shoes of investors, tenants, developer, brokers, and what we aim at the end is to make sure that the knowledge that you get from this podcast helps you with your decision.
Nice.
Lewis, I want to talk about what would you change?
Oh, what, with me personally, the real estate
the market?
If you had a wand and you could make changes, what do you think is missing? What immediately comes to your mind?
And if we appoint you to be advisor to DLD or RERA or Dubai government?
Still waiting for that. I'm waiting for that call.
You might get a phone call after the podcast.
I've called DLD a few times and it's like, no, thank you. Too opinionated. So What would I want in the Dubai property market? So first of all, I think, honestly, there's too many brokers. And that doesn't affect me because we still make commission no matter what.
Yeah.
I think we're going back at the moment to 2007 era where taxi drivers are brokers and every person you speak to is a broker. Not that they've got a RERA card, but they're going through that process.
And I'll stop you for a minute. I think the biggest issues companies have today when they're transacting is not the buyer and the seller. It's the brokers in the middle
100%.
trying to stop your deal. It's just insane.
We have it. So, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it because it's around the world. This is, you could be a football agent and another football agent is going to call and try and block the deal. That's part of sales. I just think the way that it's set up at the moment, getting a broker card is quite easy, which is fine. That's part and parcel. But there's got to be a cap. I mean, how far do you go? I mean, if I put a stat on it, I think it's gone up 400% in like 18 months. Yeah. 400%. We've not seen a 400% increase in property transactions. So the bigger companies, and that is the Allsopp and Allsopps, the Better Homes, the D&Bs, these companies, they're fighting harder for the same money, but with these uneducated. Yeah. This is the problem that I face with Dubai is that someone put something on social media before saying, I can't wait for the market to turn because the people that have set up overnight saying stupid stuff to investors disappear. Yeah. Because in a good market, anyone can be an agent. But when the market slows down, transactions still happen, but then it's about who actually is good at their job. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, if I had one, and this is for him really, it's probably the number one thing that's missing in the whole of Dubai. The UK and the US, you do a sale, we back off. Yeah. Okay. Our job's to agree the sale. Now,
as for conveyancing.
Honestly, I've had arguments with Mahmoud. He'll tell you, like, I have 37 lawyers that work for Allsopp and Allsopp conveyancers, and their job is to do the mortgage discharge. Yeah. They're NOC. They've got to go and clear the MOLAC. They've got to go sometimes meet the developers to make sure that the project is done correctly. What Dubai lacks, and I'll happily build this and do a JV with the government on this, by the way, is build a conveyancing back-end platform where every client logs in and sees their journey. Are they finance to finance? Are they cash? Yep. There is a whole marketplace there that is completely untapped. And I think most people, if you take Allsopp and Allsopp out of the equation, if you do a sale, what happens? Like so if you sign a check today with ABC Real Estate and you go, I've bought this house, you're going to tell your wife, I've bought this house. I guarantee you, unless you're dealing with top 5 companies, there'll be no email. There'll be no setup saying, hi, this is the process. No
follow-up, this is what's going to happen.
And probably the broker that's never done it before, if you bought a house for 20 million, they're going to say, Mahmoud, I'm going to discharge a mortgage for you. And you're giving this guy a check that has no idea. Yeah. So I would love a conveyancing platform or setup. I think that's huge.
Mahmoud, any idea?
On
any wish list?
Well, I would love also to actually, I believe that I had a friend of mine actually who had an incident where there was a mortgage on a certain property and he went and he gave a check
the mortgage,
to the seller directly. And I told him, you know what can happen? Usually when there is a mortgage, what you should do, you go and block the property. Yeah.
And they
That's
didn't do
crucial.
The block,
he did not.
And the seller didn't transfer?
Luckily, he managed to get out of it.
Okay.
But this can happen.
Yeah.
So I think brokers, there's so much of liability on brokers currently. Yes. And if there is any damage that happens because of whatever they do, it goes back to the brokers. I think having conveyancer lawyers in between will take a lot of that liability, and brokers will focus on their business, which is actually being middle people between buyers and seller.
I mean, if you're a buyer, think about this. You buy a house. So all we do is we say 48 hours before you're meant to get the manager's checks. Then manager's checks, you're meant to write commission, transfer, everything there. You bring them and lodge them. Yeah. UK and US, the last property I bought in London, they called me and went, just today, we're about to exchange. The money's in the escrow. Can you just send an email to confirm it? Bang. The next hour, congratulations, you've got your house. Like, there is a next step to Dubai's transactions.
And that's important for the peace of mind and security.
100%.
I'm sure, Lewis, you agree with me that there has been a lot of work on, especially dealing with the fake listing in Dubai, reducing them, more transparency in listing and pricing and data. So what's your take on that? I know you're doing your platform also on data. So if you tell us more about fake listing, data, and all these important stuff.
So fake listings is a big problem in the market. Now, the land department for me has done an amazing job. I remember sitting down with Marwan. To get hold of Marwan, by the way, you've got to literally go to his office and wait for him to go, Marwan, I'm here. Like he's the
Hope
top.
for the best.
No, but listen, he's the decision maker. I remember walking in his office one day and we just talk about real estate, and he showed me the QR codes about 6 months ago. Love the QR codes.
Yeah.
We have a small problem with it we're trying to resolve, which goes around price reduction. So basically on QR codes at the moment, if you want to sell your house with us and we're trying the price, we have to cancel a Form A,
do it
and then do it again. That's not logical. It doesn't work for a seller. But going back to Form 8, the fake listings, it's not the land department that's the issue. The issue is the portals. So the portals at the moment, one specific portal, the biggest one in Dubai, and I'll let you guess which one that is because they're both really big, got 185,000 listings online. 185,000. There were 85,000 before. But what's happening is people are still able to put them on.
Yep.
And you click a button saying verified or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. There should be at some point, if that is not Form A and the tech doesn't show it, it is not going on. Now, the issue is that they're a business, and this is the issue, that they get revenue from that. But the knock-on effect is crazy in terms of, it's not the brokerage. If you take your top 10% of Dubai, they know how to list a property. But the other guys just want volume. And that's a big problem.
And the problem is, if you call the listing, it's not available, it just got rented, there's no synchronization with the truth. And then at the same time, when you go and report the listing, you almost have to prove, because he told me it's not available. And then, they don't put the listing down. So there's a huge gap on this process
the
as
fake
well.
listing itself, the Form A is great. The QR code that tells you, yes, this is the listing for that property in that area, because a lot of fake listing, the whole idea of it actually is to attract investors and giving them lower prices.
Of course, yeah.
I think this is something will end up soon. But what we see in platform that I know Lewis has one, other companies did their own, is that now you can go to that portal and see a certain geography, a certain tower, and say the prices in the last 2 weeks.
All the comps,
it gives you all the prices, the rent. So there's so much of transparency. Even if you go and see a fake listing as an investor, go and double check with the real transaction.
Yeah.
If you see a gap, this means there's something wrong.
This is what we do. So we have, I said before, we've got the data hub by Allsopp and Allsopp. So basically on our website, you can go on it. It's like a reverse search engine. So if you live in a tower in Marina, let's say Marina Pinnacle, you'll search that, and on rentals, you can see if it's a renewal or a new Ajari, the rental price, the full address of what it is, when it rented, when the Ajari started. You do the same thing to sales. So this is what we're doing a lot with sellers at the moment. When they're coming to sell the house, we're able to give them real comparables. It's probably been the strength of the UK and the US. You can see
the MLS. And
you can see what's live. And I think that's now there. There's probably like 2 or 3 companies that are doing it, and it's nothing special, but it's what the owners want to see. So more transparency and more validation of real listings is a big part of the future of Dubai, I think.
And something else came up from the other question, and I came to my mind of the wish list. I want to do my wish list as well. I would love to see some kind of regulatory framework with the security deposits. Because, a lot of the times, for renting, because getting it back is not easy.
Yes, you're right.
There's an interesting thing with this. So if you haven't got a check-in report as a tenant, your deposit is very much up in the air, because what happens is the tenant, the landlord goes, hey, you put that crack in the wall. So we advise every lease to do with us. We do a check-in report. We take pictures and say this is how it looks. We'll repaint it for you. But a lot of tenants, honestly, they want their money back. They put the $5,000 deposit down. They want $5,000 back. The reality is you have to paint it. You have to clean it. You have to put it back to the condition it was. And a lot of tenants can't get that in the mindset. They just want the money back.
100%. There's 2 sides of every story. But in general, as you said, is open in air. Last question, Lewis, before we close. We did talk a lot about Dubai. What about Ras Al Khaimah and Abu Dhabi?
Very different markets. So I'll go through each one. So Dubai, hotspot of the world, will be for the next 5-10 years, just because of the sheer volume of investment, growth, and everything else with it. Abu Dhabi is it's the capital. It is the most cultural, beautiful, ideological place to live. You look, whether it's La Louvre, you look at all it's completely different to Dubai, but people love that. And I think that has got an incredible opportunity for growth. And I think that it's a slower, more cultural way of life, but it's also an investment hub. You know, Aldar is Aldar. Aldar have got their fingers in so many pies, it is crazy. And having them at the forefront of Abu Dhabi is just exciting for Abu Dhabi. So I think having them there and what they're building at the moment, I mean, you just launched, is it a Nobu you just launched?
Nobu in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, Nikki Beach also came.
So there's so many branded residents coming there, and I think that's going to bring a different dynamic to Abu Dhabi. And I mean, you've even branded, what's the 7-star hotel that you've got there? And you've rebranded that. Was it Mandarin Oriental?
Yeah, Mandarin Oriental.
What was it before?
Good question. I forgot. Kempinski.
No, it was the super hotel, the best one in Abu Dhabi.
Emirates Palace.
Emirates Palace.
Yeah. And then it came,
so they've rebranded that. So I think that whole thing, the F1, I was at the F1 at the last weekend, the best event in probably the UAE, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty epic, And
then you've got Ras Al Khaimah.
Yeah.
Ras Al Khaimah, I've invested in. Ras Al Khaimah is you have to buy into the vision. So I went there. I mean, 2006, I bought plots of sand in Dubai. So I understand the vision. I'm cool with that. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that. Where RAC is at the moment is you've got to look at the infrastructure that's coming in. So I know the winner there. I know there's billions of pounds being spent there. The address has just launched there. Nobu has just launched there. There'll be a Nikki Beach and everything else. With the gaming license that's there, that is going to bring a completely different dynamic. Now, I have a theory. I think it'll be RAC first, Abu Dhabi, then Dubai last. I think that will come in at some place. But if anyone's been to Las Vegas before, it's the only way I can describe how I think RAC's going to be. The strip in Las Vegas is absolutely crazy. And then when you head out the strip, it gets a little bit quieter. And I think RAC's going to be the same, but the epicenter in Marjan Island.
Marjan Island is where the money should be in.
But I think there is an incredible opportunity for investors in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and definitely Ras Al Khaimah. So my message is to just invest. Just call me.
So that's the UAE dream we're talking about.
100% the UAE dream. 100%.
Lewis Allsopp, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you on our podcast, and I have to do a follow-up then.
Definitely. 2027 when RAC's built.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Real Estate Majlis podcast. We hope you found this episode informative and insightful. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to reach out to us.